All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so very much for tuning in this afternoon. I'm Darren Smith, along with Steve Walls. I'm coming to you live from Gates Barbecue by the stadium off of 40 Highway, and of course, my guy Steve Walls is at Highmark Stadium in Buffalo, New York, as the Kansas City Chiefs prepare to take on the Buffalo Bills in the late afternoon game of the week on CBS at 3:25 p.m. locally here, 4:25 there. Steve, what's the atmosphere like in Buffalo right now?
I mean, the weather is amazing, man. This is the first time that I've been to Buffalo, and it hasn't been
Without
snow and
snow.
30 degrees. It's about 56 degrees right now, and I mean, it's people out in short sleeves, and I mean, the weather feels great in the sun.
Special kind of people that's out there in shorts right now. So congrats to them. But look, the Kansas City Chiefs they're coming to Highmark Stadium with a 5-3 record. Buffalo Bills are 5-2. They're coming off of last week's win, 40-9 win against Carolina Panthers. Chiefs, of course, were victorious on a short week, 28-7 against the Washington Commanders. Steve, this could be a big opportunity for Kansas City to make up some ground in the AFC West. Currently, the Denver Broncos are trailing the Houston Texans at the moment. Of course, it's going back and forth between the Chargers and their opponents of the Tennessee Titans right now, but they're up 10 in the middle of the fourth quarter, 27-17. If Kansas City can win this game, they'll move into actually they would move into a three-way tie with the Chargers if they hold on to their win, along with the Broncos losing thus far against the Texans. Your thoughts on how important this matchup is for Kansas City?
I think every game is important, man, because you kind of early on in the season, you lost to the Chargers, and then
Right.
had a couple of other losses, especially to Philadelphia and teams like that. So I really believe that they understand this team. Talking the Chiefs understand the importance of not falling too far behind, and trying to make up ground when you can, especially if teams are going to let you back in it, because we know as we've seen in the past, you don't want to kind of wait and be like at the end of the season and be trying to see basically TV watch
Yeah.
and see what teams are going to do what. And it's kind of the Chiefs have been in the driver's seat these past few years, and I they know what it's like to go on the road and have to get to the Super Bowl that way. They know what it's like to be at Arrowhead the whole way out. So I think that they would much prefer to be at Arrowhead the whole way out. So winning it is basically top on their list. But the one thing to think about is, let's say you get the Baltimore Ravens who turn things around, right? And then
Mhm.
the Chiefs, how things play out, they end up being the fifth five seed. Then you have to go up to Baltimore for a wild card game. That I don't think that's something that the Chiefs would definitely want to do if the Ravens start turning things around.
It's interesting. The Ravens on last Sunday went from 1-5 to today. They're now sitting at 3-5.
Hmm.
So it's a matter of just how things can turn around that this quickly in the NFL. Looking at this ball game, Steve, Buffalo. When it comes this is the 10th matchup between Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen in this Bills Chiefs rivalry, so to speak. The Bills have won 5 of the last 6 regular season games against Kansas City. The only game that the Chiefs won was when they played them up in Buffalo during the COVID year. But the Chiefs have won the last 4 games in the playoffs against this team. Overall, in the postseason, Kansas City leads the postseason record 5-2. Of course, again, as I mentioned, the last 4 being over the last 5 seasons. Now, Steve, when we look at this initial matchup, Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen, they're the two front runners currently for the league's most valuable player. Josh Allen is, of course, the current reigning MVP. The matchup between these two quarterbacks, obviously, we know that they've been going at it for the last 5-6 years. You look at, of course, this is pretty much one of this is generally always the game of the year, at least on CBS and between these two teams. I think obviously the game
Hmm.
is probably going to be in the Thanksgiving game, but when you when you get to this matchup, when you and I are covering these games, and we get to Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, what does that mean to you when we get to see these matchups between these two Titans?
I mean, it's great for football, man. You know, because these last the 10 times that they played, they've all been good games, right? They've all come
Mhm.
down to the wire. With it could go either way, right? We know that the Chiefs have come here and lost and lost a few times to this Buffalo Bills team in the regular season, and then in the playoffs, it seems like the Chiefs turn things around and they they the Bills don't come out with the win, and it's funny how a lot of folks say, well, maybe the Bills just need to lose this game and then worry about the playoffs. In all seriousness, I really believe that both these guys, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, if you look at them head up, which I believe they do, they're both competitive guys. They really want to win this game, because it's kind of one of those bragging rights things too.
Steve Walsh, Darren Smith, bringing you the pregame cheat sheet. Steve, Kansas City, of course, has won their last three games coming into today's game. Of course, they won their last three at home, and then, of course, um, I'm sorry, they won the last four games, winning the game against the Giants on the road as well. So, when we're looking at this matchup, the offense. They're going to be without Isaiah Pacheco. Looks as though Kareem Hunt is going to be starting today. They elevated Clyde Edwards-Helaire from the practice squad. Were
Hmm.
you surprised they elevated him and did not make Elijah Mitchell active for today's game?
No, I mean you know what you're getting with Clyde. If Clyde is on, he's on. I mean, we've seen Clyde at his best. His first couple of seasons with the Chiefs when he was drafted, and so I think they understand with Clyde, they know what they're going to get, and they want to see what he can do too. It's like, all right, we know what you bring to the table. Let's see if you can still do it. So,
But you
I
should
mean, I
also
think,
want to. But you should also want to know what Elijah, because you're paying him $3.5 million this year, and he has yet to
yeah,
be active. I mean, again, now to your point, you already know what Clyde can do. Paying somebody that you brought in $3.5 million, and he's been on essentially the practice squad or inactive every week is kind of, I won't say a waste of money, but essentially that's what you're doing.
yeah, but it's we'll see how
And
it
the
goes. I mean,
devil
because
you
you
know
gotta,
versus the devil you don't.
yeah. I mean, it's just like, all right, you go with Elijah, um, and let's say he goes out there and doesn't play well, right? So then you're still gonna have to go back to Clyde anyway. Or let's say Clyde goes out there and doesn't play well, then you're gonna have to go back to Elijah. So you kind of, like you said, damn if you do, damn if you don't. And it's just turning the light switch off and throwing darts at the dartboard, man, trying to make it stick.
Well, I would say it's not a matter. I would say it's not really a matter of turning from one to the other. It's just that you just give more reps to Kareem Hunt or Brashard Smith.
Yeah.
Who I think we'll see a lot more in today's running and passing game, more or
You
less.
gotta remember, Rashard Smith is still a rookie too, man. So like, it, we've seen where the lights can be too bright for young guys. I mean, we saw it with Pacheco. We saw it with Clyde. So we've seen these running backs come. I mean, Kareem too. So it hasn't happened to him yet. And I hope it doesn't. But we've seen where the lights can be too bright.
Not too often I can get Steve off flustered like that when it
Yeah.
comes to these running backs. But talking about running backs, though, the Chiefs are going to have their hands full on defense, trying to stop and contain James Cook. James Cook, had a career high 216 yards, rushing yards on last week and a couple of
Yeah.
touchdowns. So he's number two right now when you look at the rushing. I think he's got like a little over 750 yards for rushing so far this season. What do you see on the defensive side for the Chiefs that they're going to need to do? Because we've talked about how they've done well so far this season, not allowing these running backs. You look at Derrick Henry and a lot of
Hmm.
these other running backs that the Chiefs have faced to not explode for a lot of yards and especially running for 100 yards. I mean, because we saw what they did to Detroit with their two-headed monster that they
Yeah.
kept them, from rushing under 100 yards as well.
Yeah, it's gonna be a tough task. I would say for both parties. But the Chiefs have, I mean, they face some top, running backs. I mean, you talked about Derrick Henry. They face him. I mean, they faced some other guys. Philadelphia, running back,
Yeah,
and
Saquon Barkley
St.
and
Barkley,
Dave
you
Montgomery. Yeah,
you fake Montgomery, all those guys. So
yeah,
I don't
yeah.
think James Cook is any different, right? I think Spags and his formula, they're gonna pretty much do the same thing. And I said this, I think we talked about it earlier this week, where I feel like Spags is going to play the same defense that you play, when you're playing a Derrick Henry or a David Montgomery. So you've had 2 games. To understand, to be able to go back to. It's like, all right, well, this worked and this didn't work. And they haven't had a 100-yard rusher yet this season. So I, I think they'll be pretty. I think they'll be pretty fine.
So let me ask you this, Steve. So when we're looking at this and looking at this matchup, one of the things that you know we look at every year, Kansas City pretty much has some beat when it comes to talent, overall
Hmm.
talent, roster, and stuff like that. But this game always seems to come down to the end to where it just seems like Buffalo is somehow a worse matchup for Kansas City. And I mean, but when we look at it, and we've seen it thus far this season, where we'll say on our respective shows on our pregame and red hour and stuff like that, where you look at Kansas City, well, when you look at Buffalo, the games that they played, the teams that they beat, not really any of them have a winning record, that we look at right now. And then on top of that, you look at their defense. Their defense giving up a lot of points. The 2 games that they lost against Atlanta, against the Patriots, you're like, left a lot to be desired. But it feels like even in this game, you need to stop Josh Allen. You need to stop James Cook. But it just seems like it's going to be somebody lurking in the background that might have a good game against Kansas City that we don't expect. Is that something that you think that they're prepared for, or do you think that they just feel like if we slow down James Cook, we can put more pressure on Josh Allen, and that'll be the ball game for us.
Yeah, I think you cut the head out the snake. I think the head of the snake is Josh Allen. And if I'm Spags, I'm going to make Josh Allen beat me with his arm. I mean,
That's what he did
because
last
when you
year,
think, but
and
you
his
but you,
legs.
when you think about it, when the reason I say that is because James Cook has powered their offense these past few weeks. You look at a guy like Dalton Kincaid, Khalil Shakur, and then Keon Coleman. Keon Coleman hasn't done
Hmm.
much uh, this season. I mean, even Steve Smith
That's true.
talked
Yeah.
about him on his podcast. He's just a guy, called him a jag, and so. Um, if you have pros that are saying that he hasn't done much and they've played the game, at that position, I mean, I'm right there with him. I think I think that Keon Coleman hasn't shown much that he's going to be able to go out there and try to prove something today. Now I will say Dalton Kincaid has been an outlet for Josh Allen as well, but he hasn't been a killer. And so I think you just have to cut the head off the snake, man, and stop the rushing attack from Josh Allen and make Josh beat you with his arm.
With Isaiah Pacheco out in this game, what are you expecting from Kareem? We know he's going to get the start. Do you expect a heavy workload in both the pass and the run game from Kareem?
Yeah, you know what? Kareem said earlier this week that he's a lot more fresh than he was at this time last year. Because he
Well,
was
but
basically.
that, yeah, I was going to say, so for people to know, he essentially was coming off the couch because the Chiefs acquired him
Mhm.
a few weeks after the season had already started after they lost Pacheco.
Yeah, so he said he's healthy and he just feels fresh legs and we seen a lot of guys that try to come back after sitting for some time and starting to see in the middle, basically the middle of the season, and it's a tough thing to do. Now Kareem did help this team last year make it to the Super Bowl, and we're seeing a freshman. When we saw him last week have 2 touchdowns, right? So a fresh Kareem Hunt, I think he can carry the workload.
Looking at today's game, Travis Kelsey last week, Steve had 6 catches for 99 yards, a season high this far. What are you
Couldn't get one
expecting from?
yard. That's crazy.
I did. Not that we were assuming it was going to be for any petty purposes. We just thought he
Yeah.
might try to break triple digits. But when you look at Kelsey and this offense, well, let me ask you this. So coming into today's game, what is the status? And I presume he's going to strike. Because I haven't seen anything from Andy Reid of Hollywood Brown. It looked like this week he didn't practice a couple of days or whatever. But do we expect Hollywood Brown to be at full speed in today's game?
Yeah, I expect Hollywood to go. I think he'll see some passes come his way. Last week, I'm a guy that kind of tries to read body language of guys in the locker room post game, and the body language that I saw from Hollywood Brown last week was, he just, to me, he wasn't happy, and I don't
Mhm.
know if it was, because of the interception that was thrown his way, or he just, wasn't getting his touches. Now we know that they've had the motto of EGE, everybody's got to eat, and
Yeah.
Andy Reid talks about, that they're all that ego has thrown out the window, right when they step into one arrowhead drive, and but I mean, you can still see some a guy's body language if he feels like he didn't have a good game. Um,
Well, yeah, and I was gonna say when you see Mahomes 2 weeks ago pass the ball around to 9 different receivers, and then last week it was
mhm.
more like 6 or 7, where a lot of because again one of the casualties, as I mentioned to you before, with the return of Rasheed Rice has been Tyquan Thornton. Yeah, and I mean, I think he had maybe one catch last week, if at all, against the Commanders. So it's like his reps, his targets, his catches have gone down tremendously. And not to say that they were going to lean on him throughout the entire season, but during that absence of Rasheed Rice, we did see Tyquan kind of take that next step to be a receiver that Mahomes could depend on. And look, and I do believe he'll still be an asset. I don't see Kansas City trading him before the deadline on Tuesday. So I think he'll still stick around. What do you see from this offense in today's game with Mahomes and the wide receivers?
Yeah, I think he's going to spread the ball around a lot. I think it's going to be kind of similar to what they did against Detroit offensively. Um, and you're going to see a lot of what they did as well against the Las Vegas Raiders as well. Just being able to spread the ball around, keep everybody happy. Um, Now I say that to say, if they're losing, it's one thing, but if they're winning, you're able to continue on and do what you've been doing. But I can say this, that these guys are, genuinely happy for one another when
Yes.
one guy gets the job done, right? Like, I mean, if it's Tyquan Thornton's day, then it's his day, and we haven't really seen, and this has been, with Andy Reid's tenure, we haven't seen a guy that would be upset, if another guy is going off. It's just that person's day, and I don't know if that's just preached, from Andy Reid, or if it's just something that has just developed throughout the team over time, with the leaders such as Travis Kelsey and Patrick Mahomes.
Steve Walls and Darren Smith bringing you the pregame cheat sheet. Just a sworn update for everyone. It is a tie ball game out in Houston between the Broncos and the Texans. 15 all, 10 minutes left to go in the fourth quarter. Broncos driving now on 4th and 8 from their own 22. So it looks like they'll be looking to punt the ball away to Houston. The Chargers are still up 27-20 at the 2 minute mark. They have the ball. Looks like they have the ball 1st and 10. Tennessee 44-yard line with 2 minutes left to go on the ball game. So they may be able to hold on to a win. And of course, we'll see what happens in the final 10 minutes of the game between the Broncos as well as the Texans. Steve, let's look at the defense for Kansas City. Again, you mentioned Cook, you mentioned Khalil Shakir, and even Dalton Kincaid. But at times, it's all it always seems to be that one person that gives the team, that gives the players fits. And of course, on defense, a lot falls on the responsibility of Nick Bolton. I don't know if he has to be the one that has to kind of spy on Josh Allen, because Josh Allen will can beat the team with his legs, but as you said, he's going to be forced to try to beat him with his arm in today's game. Who is the and I'm kind of flipping this around. We'll get to X factor for the Chiefs, but who is the X factor that you feel the Bills offense that might give the Chiefs some problems or fits that they may not be prepared for today?
I we it's always Josh Allen, man. And that's not going to change. I think
Mhm.
the Chiefs are prepared for him because they've seen him so much, and they've seen this team, and they played against this scheme. You talked about the 10 times they played against them, right?
Yeah.
So nothing has, to me, has changed. So you're going to get a heavy dose of Josh Allen. Sometimes I feel like that can be a hindrance because he wants to play Superman, especially against especially against the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes. He wants to be that dude. But and I can't say that that's a bad thing. But sometimes I think that it can kind of skew the way the outcome of the game, if that
Does that
makes sense,
surprise
because he
you?
wants to do too much.
See, I know we have this conversation a lot, pregame, and even when we talk about it on the radar. But does it surprise you that playing up against Patrick Mahomes and even the Chiefs sometimes, well, most times, it forces a quarterback to play outside of himself to where instead of you sticking with the game plan, either the quarterback, the offensive coordinator, or the head coach always try to always end up switching things up because they end up trying to go tit for tat what the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes are doing. Does it surprise you a lot that happens?
No, no, no. I mean, we've seen it. I mean, we've seen it as far back as with the Raiders.
Hmm.
When Mahomes first came into the league, everybody wants to build their offenses similar to what the Chiefs have done. I mean, we saw it with Lamar Jackson. Where they were running the ball. I can't remember, what was it, 2 years ago, playoff game? They were running the ball
Yeah,
and
AFC
and then
Championship.
changed it up, and we saw what happened there. And you get a lot of these QEs, man, that want to go kind of tit for tat with Mahomes, and I mean, you gotta understand that that's what he does. You don't want to get out of what you do, as an offense. And sometimes I think coaches get in trouble, when they try to do that.
All right, I'm live, of course, from 40 Highway with Gates Barbecue. Steve is at Highmark Stadium, where the Bills are going to be hosting Kansas City Chiefs. Kickoff is a little under a half hour away. Steve, I want to get to the X factors for us for today's game. Who is your X factor on offense for Kansas City to beat Buffalo today?
Who, man?
Yeah, exactly.
I think it's gonna be the left and right tackle. I think it's going to be I mean, we could just say I'm gonna just go with my X factor being the offensive line. I feel like the running game and also the protection of Patrick Mahomes is going to be able to go as they go. So I'm gonna go with the offensive line.
You know what? And that's actually a good point. One thing that we did that we kind of neglected to mention was that the defensive line for the Bills. And now, granted, this was last week and this was against the Carolina Panthers, but they had essentially four sacks. They had like the four sacks last week. Joey Bosa had his 75th career sack last week. Greg Russo had a sack and a forced fumble last week. AJ Espinosa had a sack and an interception last week, and Michael Hoyt, all defensive ends for the Bills had 1.5 sacks and a forced fumble last week as well. So to your point, it is going to be impaired on the offensive line and the running backs to avoid the pressure, protect Patrick Mahomes, and definitely protect the football.
Yeah, I agree. I agree because we know what Joey Bosa can do, right? He's a game wrecker. And granted, this Chiefs team has seen one of those guys each week. Even going
Yeah,
back to the Raiders, Max Crosby. And I know Max Crosby left the game early, but still, they they
Von
they
Miller
plan
last
as if
week.
he's yeah they plan as if he's there. So you always get these game wreckers, and it's just basically how you manage them.
Looking at so for me, my X factor. If I'm looking at this, I guess I could cheat and say Patrick Mahomes, but we always know he's always the next factor in this game. On offense, I'm gonna go with Rasheed Rice. I want to see. I think he's gonna be matched up against Christian Benford, who's probably their best defensive back. So but I want to see what he's gonna do to me with the step up of competition. And again, that's not to be anything. That's not to slight the Washington Commanders, but again, they weren't really playing up to their potential because they were without Jaden Daniels. I think you're kind of more reflection of your quarterback and the player, who's the biggest dog on the team. And so I want to see what he can do, and I want to see if he's up to that challenge, and if Patrick Mahomes is going to attack him a lot to see, I mean, he's pretty much been thrown the kitchen sink with what the Chiefs offense are trying to do for him, play wise. I mean, he's gotten all the he's gotten. I don't think he's on any pitch count. I don't think he was to even begin with when he got off suspension. So, I expect him to have a big game, and it's going to be incumbent upon him because I think as we've seen, as he goes, so goes the offense. The last 2 weeks, the offense has rushed for almost 100. They rushed for essentially 300 yards. The last 2 weeks, about 150 yards
Mhm.
piece. We seen Patrick have time with the offensive line and just spreading the ball around. So I think as long as I think he's the key to this offense that we initially thought Xavier was when he came back. He was. But I think Rasheed unlocks everything else. So for me, on this game on the offensive side of the ball, the X factor for me is going to be Rasheed Rice.
Mm, I like that. I'm gonna throw something to you real quick. I had a conversation with some guys from Toronto last night,
Mhm.
um, and wanted to see your thoughts on. They had a question: did I think that Xavier Worthy is a star?
Is he a
And I is he a star? Is
I
he
think a
is he one of the
star,
top wide
yes.
receivers in the league? Yeah.
I'd star, yes. Superstar, not yet. I say that because he hasn't he hasn't really been put in a situation where he's had to be the superstar. So, last year, last year leading up to the Super Bowl, of course, a lot of pressure was on Travis Kelsey, and we saw the potential of what Xavier Worthy could be throughout the playoffs. But of course, in the Super Bowl, after the game was already, after the game was already done for Kansas City. So I would say yes, he's a star, but not a superstar yet.
Okay.
All right. We've got the X factor for you on defense.
I'm gonna go with Chris Jones, man. He's been kind of quiet these past few weeks, man. That's gonna be my X factor for the defense.
Defensively, man, I'm gonna go with Nick Bolton. Nick
Okay.
Bolton had a lot of problems last year against Josh Allen and that defense. So I'm gonna see whether or not all the film work that they've been able to get through. Listen, because I know they watched last year's game. I'm gonna go with Nick Bolton in this game to see if he can tidy up, his play from last season.
Okay, I like that. I like that. I think because if he's out in coverage, we talk about it every week. If when he's out in coverage, it's
That's gonna
kind of
leave that's
iffy.
gonna be that and that's gonna leave
Yeah.
that middle wide open.
Yeah.
Okay. So we've got that, Steve. So before we get out of here, let's get your prediction for today's game.
Man, I was thinking about this driving here. I think it's gonna be a close one. Um, 31-27, Chiefs.
Okay, so you got the magic number 30 plus. Okay, I do think it's gonna. I do think it's gonna be more than 30 points for Kansas City to win this game. I just don't. I don't know. I just have. I trust the Chiefs' defense more than I trust Buffalo's offense, matching up, and I think I think that they know that they can't afford a loss, but they also got to do some other things. So I got the Chiefs winning this game. See, before we get out of here, you want to thank anyone, your sponsors for today's game?
Yep. Thank you to my friends at Dillard's for providing me with my game day look. Make sure you go out and talk to my guy Herman Brown at Dillard's on the Rosa. Also, my friends over at Riceman Nissan. Go out there and talk to them. Get you a ride. Let them hook you up.
All right. I also want to thank Gates Barbecue as usual for the hospitality and always taking care of us, as well as Todd's Clothes and Taylor Suits and today's outfit. I'm KC. Steve, we'll be back post game, and of course tomorrow night on the Red Hour. Myself, Steve Walls, Sean Tyler, and DJ Q. Until then, go Chiefs. We out of here.